Hello, this is another Asian Movie Pulse interviews. I'm here with Takeshi Fukunaga, and we're here to discuss his new movie, Mountain Woman. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. So, getting straight into it, why this project? What is it about Mountain Woman that made you want to tell this particular story?
Um, because so like so I've lived in US for many years and then I moved back to Japan 4 years ago and then one of the reasons why I moved back was to really kind of relearn and rediscover Japan and Japanese people and then this like through and I thought by reading legends and folk tales I thought I could kind of like see that that very like a important themes and then for Japan and Japanese people and then the kind of in a way like a core of what Japan is. And then this particular book that was the original inspiration for this movie, The Legends of Tono, gave me a great insight of how people used to live and what kind of relationship they used to have with nature. And then by making this movie about and then kind of recreating the world and the people that's appears in the book, through that I wanted to reconnect with my roots and then re-explore the important themes for Japan and Japanese people.
Yeah, no. And when did you first discover the book? Was that when you moved back to Japan, or was that
Uh,
earlier?
Earlier, I think I've read it like 2018, I think, for the first time, and then I grew interest in that, and then like I decided after but that was 2019 that I decided to make a movie about it.
Yeah, okay. And obviously the film is your first Jidaigeki, it's your first period piece.
Yeah.
Um, what was it about this particular era of Japanese history that you wanted to explore and show in your film?
Because there are two reasons. One is that so the book was published in 1910, but of course, like those like original stories and legends and came from earlier than that. So so that was kind of so the time period was set around like a presumably where when those like stories were originated. And also this there was an actual famine that happened in the late 18th century because of the cold weather, just like it happened in the movie. So for those two reasons why I said this particular time period.
Yeah, and I think just you mentioned the famine there, and the something about the film's era that really struck me, especially right from the beginning, is that it's a very harsh reality.
Mm-hmm.
Was that something that you wanted to focus on when making the film, sort of not glamorizing the time period and sort of showing it as a more what it was really like at that era?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like I wanted to. Um, there was some like you said like a tough scenes and then some like um some like gruesome violence and stuff, but it
Mm.
wasn't my intention wasn't to glorify those violence or to make people like feel sad or anything. Like it was to really highlight the strengths and resilience of people. And then so like in, and then because there are times that just to live and just to get by was very difficult. And then and so I wanted through those tough conditions, I wanted to show the toughness of people, and then so that was the reason.
Yeah, and I'd say that it's a fairly different approach from the sort of traditional Jidaigeki, which can sort of glorify certain periods and not necessarily glorify violence, but almost uh,
I said
glorify hardship in a certain sense. So, were there any classic films or more recent films that you tried to draw inspiration from when trying to depict the period in this more realistic way?
mhm. Well, um, Yes, definitely works by um classics like Kaneto Shindo or Shohei Imamura, or yeah, those films were definitely
Of course, yeah.
yeah, references. And then also one of the reasons why I set this how to say, like pick this setting is that like oftentimes when there's a period piece in Japan, it's kind of those like farmers or these like minorities or people who are oppressed, never the main characters. But what I wanted to explore and then depict was those people who are marginalized, in the society. Not
Yeah.
just this film, but that's kind of a consistent theme that I feel passionate about. So it was the same for this particular film too.
And did you find it challenging to bring that theme into a completely different time period?
Yes, but but the book was it took takes place in a very small town in around surrounded by mountains, so
Mm.
it was only natural to set it there.
Yeah, well, I mean, speaking of the mountains, Mount Hyachine, I believe, is the central sort of mountain in the film. Um,
Mhm.
and it's where Rin, the lead character, kind of experiences something of a spiritual journey. Um, was it always your intention for the film to sort of have this spiritual nature, this almost mysticism, particularly in the scenes surrounding the mountain and whenever they sort of travel up into it?
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things I'm fascinated by, by the book, and then also that I have how to say, like the um special, like that I'm like especially curious about, as far as that kind of like spirituality, and then like that's like seeing gods in nature, and then which is of course connected to the Shintoism, and then I also feel that, so like nature is like a close to me as a person, but also seeing that kind of something that's beyond human, I think is one, it's I think very cinematic to
Mm.
try to convey through visual and in movies, and two, that I think it's something that um to me at least, like it's very important to see or to feel the greater existence in nature is something that I think that can keep us stay humble, as and instead of trying to control everything, and like yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that comes through in the film as well, because I love the fact that when Rin does eventually leave the village and she kind of moves away from the hardships and the sort of ostracization of her and her family because of their past, she's much freer in the mountain than she ever
Mhm.
was in the village. It's odd because she should be sort of starving and cold and frightened, but there's actually those scenes are probably the most comforting in the film.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
go on.
It was important to emphasize the contrast, between nature and then the village, not just for the those like spiritual themes, but also for the main character's journey.
Yeah. I think one of the characters that struck me in The Mountain and is probably going to strike most people that watch the film is Mirai Moriyama's Mountain Man.
Mhm.
Um, he's a very mysterious figure. Was this something that was embedded in the original book, or is this something that you sort of worked on when you were coming up, trying to flesh out the character a bit more?
Uh, e there are many stories about Mountain Man in the original book, but the details are stay mysterious. So like as far as like how he looks, and then the kind of um uh all those things ideas are original to the movie.
Mm.
We did have a backstory to in as far as like creating the character, but we decided not to explain anything because we wanted to keep it keep the character mysterious, and then instead of showing explaining all the reasons why he's that way or who he is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's very much open to interpretation sort of the role that he plays, and especially the role that he plays in Rin's um life in that moment, I suppose. But you mentioned sort of developing the character, and I suppose just on developing the film in general. You co-wrote the screenplay with Ukei Osada. Uh,
Mhm.
how did you find the collaborative process? And in general, do you enjoy writing with others, or how do you find it?
Um, so like a so I came up with the original idea and then I started the project and then wrote the first draft. But then once you know, I was always looking for a collaborator, and then like once we decided to set the protagonist as a female character, I was looking for a co-writer specific only among female writers because like as a male writer, I thought, there would be something that's I wouldn't be able to how to say fully understand or fully, like um mm, but yeah, so from the female, writer, I wanted to make the character more well-rounded and authentic and realistic, and then Ike Osawa-san, she's written a play that's based on the same book, the Legend of Tono before. So she had experience working with this particular story and the world, and then also she's done some like a period pieces in a different mediums. So like she had this extensive knowledge about this time period, and then also being a female, and then also when I met her for the first time and discussed about the story, me and her, so like what's fascinating about this book and the world. We saw it eye to eye. We never it was so essentially this isn't about like kind of fantastical being or monsters. It's more about how people create those monsters, within
Mm.
themselves. And then that's why one of the reasons why was fascinated by the book. And then that was the same thing for her. So it was a wonderful collaboration.
No, no, it sounds like it, and I think just a lot of the ideas that you guys obviously worked on within the film, they translate so well. I think one of the things that struck me the most is how much the film resonated with me, sort of in a modern, in the present day. Purely just the themes of just this idea of Rin sort of not escaping society, but just sort of being more self-fulfilled in herself, sort of being away from the trouble. Like, how do you think that this story fits into a modern setting, into the present day? Why, like, how do you think it would resonate with audiences in that way, or how would you hope it would resonate?
Right. So after while I was writing school, I was very conscious to how to say like make it relevant to the society today, especially the Japanese society. So like I try to include many themes that are themes or issues that are familiar to the Japanese society today, which are such as gender inequality or um, this like a peer pressure that's imposed on one another that became very evident during the pandemic. As I was writing, when I was writing it, we were in the middle of it, and then there are many incidents that happen in Japan that showed kind of um, like a negative side of the the Japanese value, which is like prioritizing group over individuals, and so those things affected the storylines in many ways, and so yeah, so we were very conscious to make it like modern or relevant to the society today.
Yeah, and is that something you'd like to continue to do in your work, is to sort of champion the individual? Because that's very much the case with Rin in this movie.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I would say it's always the most important themes, but that's but with this movie, yes, because we were showing that in a way like a negative side of like peer pressure, and then it's essentially it's a story about individual who prevails those pressures.
Yeah, I found as well quite interesting the generational divide within the film. Obviously, the structure of the village, sort of the way that it's set up, but particularly between Rin and her father, I found him to be someone who valued status over most things, including his children. Whereas Rin tended to be more empathetic and sort of willing to do stuff for the family. Was that generational divide, I suppose, something that you were intending on focusing on?
Wasn't necessarily a focus, but I think it was just but a important characteristic of the society, and then and not just this particular time, but still, I think today, like it's the generational divide, like I mean, just like anywhere, but like it's
Mm.
in Japan too, I think people, older generation tend to, yeah, protect their status or the family over individual freedom. And then I'm sure that was more evident in more intense way, in that time period.
Is that change something that you see more and more in Japan now?
The divide or
Oh, so sorry. So that sort of move more towards the individual rather than preserving sort of like the status of the family.
yeah, I think so. Definitely. Like which yeah, no, that's I don't know how I should call it. Like like are we becoming less Japanese, or like is that just becoming more current, or but the clash of culture, clash of generations is very um evident, in Japan for sure.
Yeah, I suppose just moving on then to the production of the film itself. How did you find like the shooting process? I'm assuming nearly all of it was shot on location. Was that a challenge in terms of working with the actors in that way? Was it a challenge for yourself? I'm not sure, were you familiar with shooting on location in that way?
It was very, very challenging. Like shooting on location, I mean, like dealing with nature, weather is can be very, very difficult.
Unpredictable.
Especially, yeah, especially when we are trying to create this world that's like affected by cold weather,
Mm.
and then sometimes just it was just super sunny out, and then we were trying to like figure out how to kind of diminish that the presence. Um, but but at the same time, there are times when we were very lucky to have uh, um, an amazing like effects for the scenes because of the weather. Like I would say one of the scenes I think about for that is when Rin is running away from wolves in the forest at night. It was the wind was like really, really strong, and then like trees were like waving like crazy, and it was, of course, again, difficult to shoot, but in the end made so much the scene so much better.
Yeah. And how do you feel that the actors sort of handled the whole process on location?
They were all, very professional, and then, they never really complain about those weathers. I mean, it was difficult for them, of course, too. But they were very hard work, working, and then, professional.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what you want. So
Yeah.
yeah. I guess then just wrapping it up in a sense, away from audiences now and away from sort of current um film criticism, how do you hope that Mountain Woman is remembered in, say, 10, 20 years time? What would you want the film's lasting impact to be on anyone who watches it?
Um. Hmm. Well, at the end of the day, I guess how the resilience of the main characters, and not just Rain, but many, like, I try to show the complexities of each and every character, and then like try to show layers, for um for the reasons that, that um I mean, for how they live, and then how they, what kind of things they say or act. And then I think that's and in the end, every one of them is just trying to survive, and then sometimes they make mistakes, but it's out of desperation, out of lack of choices. So I think that, in this movie, the setting, just to live is, well, getting by is very, very difficult. But in the end, I think I try to show the strengths of people. So, if people can take that, feel that, and then like kind of like in a way, like encouraged, to I guess, like stay strong. I don't know, if that's a best way to describe it. Like that'll be I'd be happy, that the people can take away some kind of positive message from it.
Yeah, no, I mean it's an important message to take away, and I hope as many people kind of get the chance to see the film as possible. Really, um, just finally, you directed an episode of the upcoming TV show Shogun. Um, can you very briefly tell us a little bit about that experience and perhaps what we can expect when the show does eventually land?
Um, it was a nerve-wracking experience because so right after I finished making this movie, I went on to direct an episode of Shogun, and it was a huge production, like totally different scale from anything I've done prior to that. So it was very, very challenging, but essentially it was a wonderful experience, wonderful learning experience. And I think um as far as what you can expect, I don't probably shouldn't try to say something because I don't know what's right, okay or not okay. But yeah, more than anything, it was a amazing, amazing learning experience for me as a director.
Yeah, and hopefully it kind of just adds to opens more doors and lets you kind of get your camera in more places and make more movies like Mountain Woman.
Yeah, I hope so too. I hope I can, like, how to say, like, use that experience, and then, and then make a better movie.
Yeah. Well, Takeshi Fukunaga, thank you very much for your time. I wish Mountain Woman all the best success and good luck with whatever project you take on next.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.